All right, so I have Roland Davis online from DNVGL. I had asked him to just give us a synopsis of what they do, because for those who want to know what this whole thing envision, so you can have an idea as to what they really look at, so that when we discuss going forward, what it is that we are willing to, we want to do at the regional level, you will understand what the process entails. It can be, as Christina said, it can be, an overarching process to a very detailed engineering process. I guess one of the things we'll have to decide, and member states will have to tell us, guide us to a large extent. Do we just go to the juggler and just get a full-scale integration study done, or do we first do the lighthouse scan and then eventually drill down? Those are the kind of questions we have to talk about. Things we have to talk about. So let us hear what Ronald has to say.
I wanted to take an opportunity just to talk about what we're doing in Hawaii, California, in the Caribbean, of a proactive planning methodology that we have developed, and we're using just to see how it applies towards what your objectives are. First, I want to explain who DNVGL is quickly. Some of you may know me from VEW Engineering, where I've been down to Carolec before, but you get an idea of the reorganization that's taken place in DNVGL, as it's now called. So we have combined a large number of different companies together into one big one. So I know some of you refer to us as KEMA, others as GL, some Power Solutions, some VEW, but this gives you an idea of the organization. The proactive approach was developed as part of the California Public Utility Commission, with conjunction with other utilities and Hawaii Electric. And it was the proactive approach was a methodology that allows you to assess different renewables, both renewables, conventional, storage, energy efficiency, and to combine transmission and distribution, resource planning, and finance and rate analysis all into a common format. And this allows to begin looking at reserve margins, dispatch generation, and operations and contingency analysis. So proactive goals were to improve the visibility of operations and planning, to bring all the departments together to be able to share data and be able to do joint operations, and be able to take the impacts from the distribution system as you're putting higher penetrations of renewables excuse me, back to the transmission and into the production costing and look how systems operate. It's also a methodology that is consistent, that is repeatable, and it can apply to any utility of any size, from studies we've done of 100 kilowatts or 1 megawatt up to thousands of megawatts. It's a method that everybody can share and follow, and it has the ability to provide transfer to other data sets and information out to different companies, different utilities, and be able to do long-term and short-term planning. So on the right-hand side, you can see that there are the tasks that's done is to collect the data, which when I hear on the discussions today, there's a lot of questions of collecting data, making it uniform, or being able to share information between the island utilities. And this is very important when you begin to look at conventional generators, because as you start and add renewables, your generators go from a base load to more of a cycling, ramping. You have ramping problems, spinning reserves you now got to carry when you have variable renewables, and a methodology for validating your data. And it also allows to bring in the outside agencies, the commissions, interveners, stakeholders, other parties, to be able to participate in the analysis. So what we were trying to do was to develop a roadmap for all the utilities to follow regardless of their size. The methodology started out wanted by the California Public Utility Commission to develop a methodology that they could give to any utility in California or anywhere else that would have what we call a proactive methodology for planning. And so we're currently developing a manual for California that describes how a utility would start from scratch to go through and do a proactive study to look at renewable integration into your current resource mix. And here is a list of some of the utilities that were involved in the development of this methodology. So this kind of gives you an idea of where it's being used. We're currently working with the Carbon War Room and on doing some of the islands already. And so we've applied this methodology to some of the studies are being undertaken. So we've done it for some Caribbean utilities, and we did some work with police on the integration of this methodology. And you can see and under the Carbon War Room where we're doing some of the islands. The basic idea of this is this list of projects that we're doing where we can first go through and develop your portfolio mix. And that is over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, what does your renewable look like? In the case of some of the islands where you're going to put in hydro or geothermal, it's going to take some years for those to develop and get built. So in the meantime, on the short term, to get some renewables in, what can you install now and yet won't impact when you come in and build some future baseload generation? So we do screening analysis for potential renewables. In this analysis, you can evaluate wind, solar, hydro, geothermal, waste energy, almost any technology, including wave energy and other storage devices. Then you can transfer this information over to the distribution for distribution planning to look at what kind of renewables you can put onto your your feeders, how much can be put on each feeder, what's the impact of the system, transfer back that to the transmission, and continue doing your penetration studies. Then you can go transfer that over to the power simulation studies and do your production capacity and finance analysis. From there, you can then get in to look at your grid code requirements. And so what do you need to put into an RFP for reliability, and to put that information and the resources you're looking for into an RFP, and then get your outreach support from others, and then get an RFP back and evaluate it. So in this analysis, you can fit in different companies into this procedure. So for example, in the RPS, you may want to bring in another company to that has some that can do some of the portfolio standards. But the idea is to make this uniform so that any one of these levels of doing the study in these steps, you have the common methodology that needs to be combined and transferred easily from one model to another so you can do a study efficiently. One of the things we're finding is that there's a general lack of information as far as your generating units, and this is common through all the utilities that we've done work for. They really don't have a good handle on your generators. What is the heat rate curve? How will they operate when they're going to be in a cycling mode? And how much spinning reserve you're going to need. The other idea, and I'd like that you brought it up, was the sharing of information, or at least the procedures. And a lot of that has to do with collecting data on renewable energy, wind generation, generators in general, and your procedures. That this allows the utilities to come together, share information, and be able to learn from each other so that you don't all make the same common mistakes at the beginning, but you learn between what everybody's doing because you're following the same methodology and procedures. Then you can share information between each other, and that way your studies will go quicker and your data will be consistent between the utilities as far as forecasts and data in general. And although we use specific tools, any kind of production costing, distribution, transmission model can all be integrated together in doing these studies. So I wanted to kind of have an opportunity of showing you the procedures that we have developed to be able to do integration planning, to develop a roadmap, and be able to have a consistent method for you to go through and begin your studies. That's really what I just wanted to take a few minutes to just show you the work that's being done. As I said, in California and the work we're doing there in conjunction with Hawaii and other utilities, we're working on a manual for how you conduct renewable integration studies. We hope to have it out this year. We're working on it now, and once it goes to the Public Utility Commission, it will be a document that will be available to anyone. So I know we're close to time, so I kind of wanted to give you this overview and to see if you had any questions.
Thank you very much, Ron. Thanks very much. Excellent presentation. What I want are really two main things right now. An indication as to whether, and I really would like an input from private, as to whether we should look at some kind of regional effort to do the assessments. We see that there are already a number of countries who are working with DNPGL on this. Number two is, if it is that we are going to be doing this regional strategy, should it be one where we say, well, let's do a lighthouse scan of the countries and then do a deeper analysis, or do just go straight to the deeper analysis? And thirdly, which is also important, I would like to get an indication as to the partners who would like to be involved, so that I can know when we leave this room where to start. So that I can actually pull together a virtual meeting of the partners who have expressed interest, and then we could create some kind of framework going forward from that first virtual meeting. Even here know the partners who are interested in doing something. If it is that we say we are interested in doing something, that would be a good place. I see a couple of hands. I said David Barrett. Anybody else? Christina? Mark. Christina Mark, yes.
All right. I think the presentation was certainly a very interesting one. And what I would be trying to suggest is that you go with a deeper study for a number of reasons. One, usually a more superficial study ends up not being utilized for implementation, and then we continue to have a discussion that this was left out, that was left out, and then another study happens. So that's one. Two, practice that there will be a cycle of repeated studies anyway. Your East Coast expansion plan, in Jamaica, I think it's done, I think it's done 5 years. So one way or the other, you're going to need a fresh study. So why not go deep initially? And of course, that's going to be refreshed anyway. So I think you save costs, you save time, and create a tool that can be quickly implemented. The last thing then in that regard is that as between the times of the studies, you will find that the mix, the energy mix within each of the countries will change. And therefore, there will be a need anyway to do that work. So those three things compounded, I think the best way to go is go deep first. The other comment that I would say is that if we can find a template that is relevant to the region, and most of the small islands have a number of similarities in terms of whether monopolies or oligopolies or otherwise, then that would perhaps save us time and cost in the transfer or translation of experiences in one country to the next.
Thank you, David. Excellent. Mark, let's go straight to your comments, questions.
First of all, David, those were some of the same comments I want to make, so I can shorten my question. But I wonder, Devin, you started off by asking, is this an area where CARICOM Energy should sort of organize a regional effort? And I almost might turn the question around and say, is this sort of a subset of the conversation we were having in the first half of the morning, right? So within the topic of technical assistance, and now we're talking about grid integration, grid codes, is better coordination essential? Ron, if you can hear me, can you go back to the slide where you're showing, maybe one before, where you're showing the countries that you've been involved with? Yeah, leave it there if you could, because it seems to me that there doesn't need to be necessarily a new initiative in this space, but rather, how do we better coordinate what is already going on? And to be quite frank, from the perspective of the World Bank, and when we engaged with Christina and Meister to initiate the efforts in the OECS countries, the request for that work had certainly come from the OECS countries themselves in the context of the Renewable Energy Committee within ISERA. And so the 6 countries of the OECS were saying we need these grid codes. In parallel, to be fair, they were asking for the same service from multiple development partners. We won't comment on that right now, but that does seem to happen frequently. And so when we went, for example, with Christina to Antigua and Barbuda, Irina had already been proceeding with an MOU for the same basic service. St. Lucia, we're coordinating now closely with Carbon War Room, DNB, and others to get these things done. So first of all, I'd say this is a great example of why we need to do the first half of today's conversation, which is better coordination. We're already coordinating in this space, but some of it is de facto. So I would put this on the terms of reference for the Technical Assistance Committee as one of the first things that need to happen under the framework of regional integration. And what I would add, though, the good news is that it seems like much of the regions are already going down this pathway, from what I know of the different studies, in a pretty deep level, David. I think that at least I know from our terms of reference, we have the ability to go fairly deep in terms of the analysis. So we're looking at all OECS countries. You mentioned Jamaica. You've got Aruba, Belize, Bahamas, et cetera. So I think that much of the region's already going down a path of fairly comprehensive grid integration studies. So out of that, I think the job of the regional initiative should be to review those, find parallels, integrate, and develop out of that. I want to end with the same point you did, David, which is let's come up with a couple of core templates of how these had been done rather than will get done. And then when we go back and do them, as you said, there is some need to repeat these things on a periodic basis. We'll have a better template for that moving forward.
Yeah, this is Ron, and I agreed to that because when we presented to St. Lucia the procedures, and as you said, there were other companies in there, Homer and Miser. We combined everything together so that they did part of it and we did part of the integration study. It allowed us to bring in the expertise from different utilities and different funding programs also to develop something that will be cost effective for the client, for the utility, and to see that they get some renewables in.
Thanks for that, Ron.